patterns, permutations, time, rhythm, coordination, meter, concentration, tempo, modulation, groove. Welcome to the DrumMantra podcast. This is Rich Stitzel, and it's time to go deeper with your practice. Hey everybody, Rich here. Welcome back to the DrumMantra podcast, episode 19. I'm super excited to share this episode with you today because I am going to play you a phone conversation I had with drum master Ari Hoenig. Ari is one of the most rhythmically advanced drummers on the planet, and if you don't know who he is, you need to check him out because he will blow your mind. It is insane what he has been able to develop coordination-wise. The depth of his understanding of polyrhythms is crazy, and he does it in a very musical way, and he will talk about that coming up on this phone call. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to all the companies that I'm associated with. These drum companies make amazing instruments, and they are very cool people to work with. I really appreciate all of their support, and I urge you to check out all of the instruments from these companies. First of all, the A&F Drum Company from Austin, Texas. They are making handmade raw brass drums. I love them. They're works of art, and they also sound amazing. Rami Antoon is the president and designer for all of this stuff, and his vision is ridiculous. They are one of the most popular companies in the world, and with good reason. My favorite drums that I'm using right now are the 3.5 by 15 raw brass snare drum with European walnut hoops. I also love the 3 by 13 Rude Boy snare and the 1.75 inch by 14 inch pancake snare. It sounds like a floor tom. It sounds like a floppy, crazy snare drum. It's awesome. So definitely check them out. Secondly, the Craviotto Drum Company out of California, handmade single-ply steam-bent shells. Johnny Craviotto was the Ferrari of drum makers, and although he is no longer with us, his team of builders are still carrying on the tradition in exactly the way that Johnny did. They are beautiful drums, they sound amazing, and I love all the people that work at the company. Craviotto Drum Company. Evans Drumheads. I've been with Evans since 1994. They have an amazing assortment of heads, and I use a lot of different heads depending on the situation, whether it's live or in the studio. I go between G1 coateds, G2 clears, and G2 coateds. The calf tone head for a nice vintage sound, and I'm also really loving the UV heads for snare drums. Evans is an awesome company. They're always innovating, and I highly recommend checking them out. Vic Firth sticks. I've been with Vic Firth for about 10 years now. The stick I'm using mainly is the X55A. I also love the X5A and the X5B. The 55A is right between the 5A and 5B, and I go back and forth depending on my energy and my mood, and the sound of the room really determines a lot about what stick I'm going to use. I also use the 5A barrel for a kind of a funkier, more articulate, kind of a thinner, more rim-shotty sound from the drums. And of course the Heritage brush, I use them all the time. I love the Heritage brush. It's the purple one, it's the purple brush. And also the T1 timpani mallets, use them all the time. Love Vic Firth. Enough said about them. Check them out. The Polynome app. This is a new one for me. I just signed on with the Polynome app a couple months ago. Joe Crabtree is the inventor of the app. It is the metronome on steroids, if ever there was one. You can do any polyrhythm that you can dream up. 11 with 17, 7 with 18. Really crazy stuff. I guess that would be 7 with 9. That's not too crazy. Let's think of a hard one. I don't know. 13 with 19. That's a weird one. Things you're never going to use, but you can actually hear them. It also allows you to program sounds, program rhythms. do presets for playlists. You can also program entire drum beats in there. You can save things to folders and share them with other users of the app. It's awesome, the Polynome app. Moravian Percussion and the Box Kit Cajon. Josh Trask is a woodworker and hand makes these amazing instruments that are similar to the cajon, but they are a little more advanced. They have multiple areas where you can get multiple pitches from the different areas. You can also turn snares on and off on the side of the drum, on the top of the drum. They are super versatile. They're beautiful instruments, and they sound amazing. The Box Kit Cajon. And finally, last but not least, the Sabian Cymbal Company. I love these cymbals. I've been playing them most of my life. I'm digging the Big and Ugly series. I'm doing the Apollos and the Kings, and they are great. I love the 24-inch rides on both of those. The Artisan series is awesome. I'm loving my 17-inch hi-hats, and of course all the effects cymbals. I love this new Trash Crash. They have a ton of great things, and you should check them out. Sabian Cymbals. A little bit about Ari real quick is I'm on his website right now. I'll just read a little bit from his website. He's from Philadelphia. He went to the University of North Texas, and I was actually one of his classmates. There were 200 drummers at school, and my practice room was right across the hall from his, and I got to observe how he developed as a player. And although there is a legend about him that I just found out is actually not quite true, it's the spirit of the idea of the legend is true. That legend is that he would record himself playing and then walk around listening to himself and then go back to the practice room and fix anything that he didn't like. And you'll hear from him as well. But the truth of the matter was he was constantly listening and trying to work through certain rhythmic and polymetric and polyrhythmic ideas while listening to music. So he would be thinking about rhythmic structure around melodic content while walking around with headphones on. And we're talking about the early 90s, so the most advanced technology back then was the Sony Walkman. There were no iPhones or video cameras or anything like that, so pretty old school. You have to be very dedicated to use that kind of technology to better yourself, but it proved very successful for Ari. He quickly rose through the system at North Texas from, I believe, the 9 o'clock and then to the 5 o'clock and then to the 1 o'clock. I recall one of the early performances I saw of him at school, so we'll talk about that a little bit. After school, he went to New York, and he started playing with the Jean-Michel Pilk Trio, which completely changed the way that everyone thought about music. It was a very groundbreaking instrumental trio that he played in, and they were very much stretching the boundaries of what was possible. He also played with the Kenny Werner Trio. He still does. Chris Potter's group, Kurt Rosenwinkel's group, Joshua Redman. He also plays with Wayne Krantz. He was the drummer kind of when Keith Carlock kind of started to be on the road more. I think Keith was out with Sting maybe at that time, but Keith was doing Steely Dan and Sting around the time I think that Ari kind of took his place with Wayne Krantz as the main sub in that band. He did a record with Richard Bona. He's played with Pat Martino. I mean, he's super heavy, super heavy. Complete artist and a complete master of the instrument. Ari is endorsed by Yamaha drums, Bosphorus cymbals, Vader drumsticks, and Evans drumheads. I'm very excited to share this phone conversation. The reason this whole thing came up, or the way that this whole thing came up, is he posted a video on Instagram and said anyone that can transcribe these 4 bars, whoever transcribes these 4 bars first will get 2 free passes to one of his shows on the West Coast. Obviously, I don't live on the West Coast. I'm in Chicago, but I still wanted to give the transcription a shot. I love the idea that we have so much access to so many amazing things on social media, and I encourage you all to slow down a little bit on something that you are inspired or moved by and actually take the time to learn it and dig in deeper instead of just scrolling and checking something out and scrolling and checking something out. Really spend the time. So I downloaded this piece of audio from Ari and started the transcription process. And I spent about 90 minutes or 2 hours on these 4 measures, just really listening and trying to get it. And when I finally thought I had it, I sent it to him on Facebook. And he said, everything looks pretty close. There's just a few little things missing. And I wrote back and said, well, can you tell me what's missing? I would love to talk about the process that I just went through on my next podcast. And he says, I'll tell you what you were missing when we do the podcast. And I'm like, whoa, okay. It looks like I'm about to do a podcast interview with Ari Hoenig. Very cool. So I'm super pumped about this. We had a great talk, and I can't wait to share it with you. I'm going to play the piece that he posted so you can get a sense of what it was that I transcribed. And a lot of people transcribed it. There are a lot of heavy drummers out there and people that are very capable of doing transcriptions at this level. So I want you to enjoy this, really give it a listen, and if you really want to go deeper, I encourage you to try to transcribe it yourself. Oh, real quick, he will play 4 bars of time, and then the pattern begins, and it's a 4 measure long pattern, and I believe it repeats 4 times. Here's the piece.
Hey, man.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Where are you?
I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to be on the West Coast. Is that happening soon?
I will be on Saturday. I'm leaving on Saturday to go to the West Coast.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I'm drinking a cup of coffee and walking to my studio. It's cold where I am.
Where are you at, Rich?
I'm in Chicago.
You're in Chicago. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's about 37 degrees right now. and of course, my family's still in Texas, so I talked to them there in Fort Worth. You know, it's 85 degrees, and they're sitting by the pool barbecuing. And
ew.
I'm like, not here. It's cold. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's kind of funny how this whole thing happened. I mean, I just happened to be kind of perusing Instagram, and you posted that video saying anyone that can transcribe this can get free tickets to one of my shows on the West Coast. I'm like, man, this is great. So I checked it out and spent, I don't know, probably a good solid 90 minutes going through I think you played that pattern like 4 times through. It was like a 4-bar phrase. So I just found 4 measures of it.
Have you seen some other of those quizzes that I've put up before?
I have not.
Oh, really? I put up probably about maybe a total of 4 or 5 on Facebook there on that.
Oh, cool.
Or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that page. I put up a bunch of quizzes. I don't do it that often, but I'll every few months.
It was great, man. I mean, the process that I had to go through to start to figure it out. I mean, I want to know the depth of where you're coming from with it. But the way I kind of came out.
You sent me at some point. You sent me the transcription you did, right? And how did you send it? Because I want to get it again from you. Did you send it by email or?
It was a PDF that I sent on Facebook Messenger.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can find it because I can go over it with you. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, I can just go down and tell you what I wrote out and just how it differs from yours.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Okay, this is Rich real quick, jumping into the conversation. I'm going to play you a programmed version of the transcription that I did, and then we will work through the differences, and I will tweak it as we go. You will hear 2 measures of time, and then you will hear the phrase once. Here we go.
first bar is totally right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think there's, on the second bar, I think there's like a ghosted snare on the beat after beat 2 that's on the snare. It's non-accented.
Unaccented note on the E.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you got that so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to play you a programmed version of 2 measures of the transcription that I did, and then I will play 2 measures of the transcription with the fixed 16th note on the E of 2. Here it is. And now here it is with the added unaccented note on the E of 2. You will hear 2 repetitions.
Okay, and then that's it for that bar. And then the third bar, this beat 2 is exactly the same as beat 1. So
just not that second note on the snare.
It's the 16th note after the 4th sextuplet of beat 2.
So the beat 2 of bar 3 is the same as beat 1 of measure 1 or measure 3?
So, you know what it is? On beat 2 of the third bar, the second triplet there on the snare, it's not on the second triplet, it's 1 16th note triplet after that. So 1 sextuplet after beat 2. The same place that it is on the first beat.
Okay, gotcha. And then that 16th note on beat 3 on the third partial of beat 2 is still correct?
I think so.
So just move that second snare hit over 1 16th note. That ghost note.
That's what it is.
Okay, so here is measure 3. We're going to hear the original transcription that I did first for 2 measures, and then you will hear 2 measures of the beat 2 moved over by 1 16th note, and that's an unaccented snare drum hit. Here it is. Okay, and now here is the fix with beat 2 being moved over by 1 16th note.
And then on the fourth bar, there's another snare, a ghosted snare on the second sextuplet of beat 2.
The second partial?
Yeah, of the second sextuplet of beat 2.
That to the that.
Oh, shit. That's not good.
So smoke alarm? You want to call me back?
Rich, you're gonna have to hang on, man.
Yeah.
You still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's weird.
So,
oh, hey, man. You've got a smoke alarm going off, and hang on 1 second. I've got a guy come in to pick up some microphones real quick.
Oh, okay.
He's here. Let me run these out to him real quick. Hey, man. Here you go. See you later. Okay. I'm back. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So beat 2 of bar 4.
Yeah.
There's an added snare drum after the second partial. The middle note of the triplet, right?
The second partial. It's on beat 2, but it's the second sextuplet of beat 2.
Oh, second sextuplet. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Right after 1, yeah.
Right, and that's non-accented, right? That note.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to hear the original transcription 2 times through, and then we're going to hear the fixed transcription 2 times through, where we're going to add a 16th note partial to the E of beat 2. And remember, we're talking about 16th note triplets here, so it's the second of the 16th note triplets on beat 2 is the fix. Here are the first 2 bars. And here it is with the added 16th note on the E of beat 2.
And then after that, what you wrote is a little weird. I don't know what I mean. I think it's right, but the last couple beats.
It's kind of like a 9. Yeah, it's like a 9 inside of 2.
It's not a 9. They're just offbeat sextuplets. That's all they are.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The loop, I grabbed, like I said, you played it 4 times, I think, in a row, and I kind of looped your third time because I felt like that one was kind of the when it settled. So that one felt a little bit triplety to me, but okay, cool. It's just every other sextuplet.
Right.
Starting on the E of 2. Gotcha. Cool, man.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, once again, we will play the original transcription, and then we will play the fixed version. Here are the first 2 bars of the original transcription. And now here are the two bars with the fixed syncopated sextuplets instead of 9/2. It'll be the syncopated sextuplet snare drum fix. Here it is. And now here is the complete phrase in its correct form with 2 measures of time up front.
So the way that I decide to attack this, and then I'll let you kind of explain the way that you created it, is obviously, looking for the smallest subdivision, looking for the knowns. So one of the knowns was the ride pattern, completely consistent. Hi-hat pattern was completely consistent. So then trying to find the smallest subdivision, which is the sextuplet.
Right.
And then just the way that I attacked it is first kind of filling in the gaps of your bass drum. Because those were all the same volume level instead of dealing with snare drums that are accented and unaccented. So I kind of filled in that part next and then listened for the accented snare drum parts, filled those in, and then just tediously listened over and over for when those ghost notes were coming in on the snare drum.
Yeah.
So that was my process of doing it. But as I was transcribing it, I know that you have a whole system of coordination that you have created with the polymetric kind of structures underneath it. So you're playing, this is a very simple example of what you are capable of, for sure. But
that's simple.
Are you thinking melodically with this? I sort of see a pattern. It feels like the bass drum sort of, the third bar sounds like an upside down version of some of the other stuff. Is there a melodic pattern that you invented for this?
There's the general, if you take out all the ghost notes, so basically like the beat is a pattern that somebody wrote, Gell wrote as a part of a song of a project that I play with him. It's a duo, it's electronica project, it's a duo. Right. So he basically wrote the stuff without the embellishment. And what that pattern is, it's actually it's a cycle of 17 that goes over the bar line. So that's what that is. And that just has to do with like where for example you could say that it would start on the second.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, second partial beat bar 2. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that ends up being a 17. 17 triplets, not sextuplets.
Yes, right, and I see it. And then it starts again on beat 4 of bar 3, right?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. 3, 3, 4, 3, 4. That's what it is. 3, 3, 4, 3, 4.
3, 3, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it starts on the third partial of beat 3. Is when it starts over again, right?
Well, you can hear it starting wherever, but in the easiest way to hear it, to see it, how it lines up visually, is the first accented snare note of beat 1. I hear it starting on 1. I'm not thinking about it as a 17. I'm thinking of it. The way I think of it is like the accent pattern starts on the second triplet, and then I play it 3 times. And then it keeps going back. So it goes back 1 to the third triplet, I play 2 times. Then it goes back again, and I play it 3 times. Then it goes back again, 2 times.
To the middle notes, yeah. And then the third note. Right. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep, I totally see it. Yeah.
That's how I thought about it, but I don't know if that's how he's thought about it.
So he wrote a pattern in 17. Was he thinking triplets? Did you know that at the time, or did you superimpose that? Okay, so that was the subdivision in his mind as well. Because when you take the ride pattern out, there's definitely some backbeat feeling. It feels like it could be in a weird duple kind of meter thing. Okay, so he presented you with some kind of outline.
Yeah, it's really more than an outline. It was really just the beat without the embellishments. It was just it was
a beat. You know? It wasn't a melody or anything. It was a beat.
Yeah. He had a song, written. And he put a drum beat to it, and that was it.
And it did not have this the swing ride pattern.
It did.
That's how
it did. Okay. All we do actually, really. Not all of them, but a lot of them have that.
Okay. So he created this, and then you just adapted it to your own kit.
The thing that I did that I feel like was special is that I added all the sextuplets that are going in between the beat. So like the beat itself, like if you hear that group, like a lot of the stuff is kind of like that. It's just triplet oriented, and there's a lot of second triplets in there. It's almost like African, but it's electronic.
Yeah, I was gonna say very 1280. Yeah, 1280.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So
I'm going to take the ghost notes out real quick so you can hear what this pattern sounds like without the extra sextuplet unaccented snare drum notes. Here's that pattern.
So what I did is, at some point I started realizing like I can put in these sextuplets and make it sound essentially kind of faster than it is, So that to me that's the the really interesting thing about that and about what we're doing is that aspect of it.
Right, because it almost kind of implies a little bit of a drum and bass vibe.
Yeah, well, it is. It is actually drum. That's what it is. It's drum and bass. Instead
drum
of
and bass with triplet. Yeah. Man,
it's like
great.
Kind of jazz feel, behind it all.
Right.
Okay, just for fun now, I'm going to play the pattern without the ride cymbal or the hi-hat. So all you're going to hear is the bass drum and the snare drum. And you will get the sense of the drum and bass style that we were just talking about. Here's that example.
You've written, how many books do you have? 4? You have polyrhythms?
Yeah, 2 polyrhythms books with Mel Bay, Systems, which is the drum book for coordination, and then
melodic drumming.
That's a video.
That's a video. Okay.
And the one that I would recommend to everybody, that really is kind of the basis for the way that I do everything and the way that I think is rhythm training.
Rhythm training. Okay.
So I have videos out on my music masterclass are to me like the ones that are kind of best, probably the most helpful to people in terms of like what I do.
Right.
And those are rhythm training, and then there's some other things there as well. But the stuff about rhythm training, either on time or or not. But that's those are the ones that that I feel like can help and everybody kind of understand what I'm doing and how I'm thinking.
Right. Okay. So, man, I'm gonna take this way back because we were at North Texas together, and I don't know how much you remember of those days, but I remember the one year that you were in the 1 o'clock. I was playing percussion in the 2 with Bill Shoup.
Okay.
And do you remember those days? Like this was probably 92, maybe 92.
Good reminder of some details that I might not have remembered, but that's great.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know why, but certain details of school stick with me, but most of it is gone. But I remember you were playing in a band with Aiden. You were doing a band. You and Blair were kind of sharing duties in a band with Aiden, I remember. And I remember being at one of your, I remember going to your recital, and it was the very first time that you dumped your stick bag out. Do you remember that?
No. It was my recital?
You don't remember that? That was a big one, man. I mean, you were trading 8s with somebody, and on one of your 8s, you grabbed your stick bag and you slowly poured all of your sticks out onto the floor.
But it wasn't my recital because I never gave it.
It was not your recital. No, you were on the recital. Yeah,
do you know
it wasn't your recital.
Recital it was?
Gosh, I don't. But I remember that. I remember seeing that and thinking that was like the first time that I kind of it struck me that you were interested in more than just playing drums. That you had like this interest in creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of captured my attention. And then of course the legend as it goes is you're probably thinking this is creepy that I can remember all these things about you. I was actually in my practice room, and then right next to me was Blair, and right across from us was you. And I can't remember who else there was on that little hallway in that one building.
Was it 90? Which year was it? 93 or 4 or?
Yeah, it was sometime in that area.
I was there for 3 years, and I'm just trying to remember like which year it would have been.
Yeah, I don't know. I was in and out. I was playing in that band Tin Man. I don't know if you remember that group. With Carlock was playing drums. I was playing percussion.
What was the band called again?
The band was called Tin Man.
Oh, Tin Man, yeah. I do remember that.
Keith Carlock was playing drums, and Andy Timmons was playing guitar. Anyway, so I was like in and out of school. I kept leaving, going on the road. But anyway, the second part that really struck me was your growth and development from, I think you were in the 9 o'clock, and then the next semester you were in the 1 o'clock.
Oh no,
and
5 o'clock in between.
Five.
I know that.
Okay, so you made this giant jump. Yeah, and so it kind of became like, how did you do that? What was that? And, I remember we used to always see you, first of all, you had hair down to the middle of your back. and always walking around with your walk.
Nobody believes me.
Oh, yeah. Any of us that were there remember. But, you would be walking around with your Walkman all the time, I think I remember. And we were, I don't know if this was true or if this is what just sort of started getting made up because of your big jump from, I guess, the 5 to the 1. But, what we all believed was you were practicing recording yourself and then listening back and fixing everything that you felt was not right. Is that true?
No.
Do you remember that? That's not true.
No, I definitely recorded myself, sometimes and listen to it. But the way that I would, clear that up, is, the way that what I was doing with the Walkman, is I was internalizing songs and melody and rhythm. And
so you're listening to,
like, what's that?
You were listening to tunes. Is that what you're doing? Or you listening to yourself playing? What
I really did, have you seen the rhythm training stuff on my music masterclass?
I have not.
Okay, so that's what I was doing. What it is really is, and I would be listening to music while I was doing that, because I needed.
So you're practicing was it kind of partials? It's kind of like Ed's partials. Is that sort of what it is? No, not
really. It was more advanced than Ed's partials because it was more like progressive rhythm stuff. It was like, so for example, like with the sextuplet stuff that we're just talking about, that's really cool. But the really hard thing about that is to be able to hear rhythm that quickly.
Right.
And so that's what I was practicing, is to be able to hear rhythm fast. And so like me doing it with headphones was just the way that I kind of went about it. But I would basically be singing and tapping things along to records and to music that I was hearing. And I was doing like a combination of that and then just listening to music and internalizing the music that I would hear. So like what I realized is that, being a good drummer is actually like 80% about not playing the drums. It's about understanding the music that you're playing or that you want to play.
Yeah.
And so I think that's when I kind of really started getting into that, that's what I was doing. Does that make sense? It'll make
absolutely,
sense.
Yeah.
Those videos too.
Yeah, I completely understand. Now, back then there was very little technology, so you were using kind of the most advanced technology there was, which was a Walkman.
Yeah.
You're listening tunes now. So as you're listening to a melody, were you starting to try to figure out how to put 4 notes between like 2 notes in a melody, or now I want to try to figure out how to put 5 notes between those 2 notes in the melody? I mean, were you starting to experiment with advanced subdivisions then?
A little bit, but it wasn't really. I wouldn't say that it wasn't really that advanced. It was really more dealing with like, especially at that time, it was just dealing with 16th notes and triplets and grouping them. So for example, like when I say that there's a beat and then there is a cycle of 17, right? Like that doesn't really mean anything to me, I mean, what means something to me is the way it sounds and then how fast I can internalize the way it sounds. But there still has to be shortcuts of how you're thinking about it to be able to memorize the bell, you know? Because if you to remember that whole 4-bar phrase, it's a lot to memorize. It's kind of like saying, okay, I want you to memorize 10 people's phone numbers. Go. You know what I mean? Like, you can do it, but you need shortcuts. You need to have shortcuts in order to do that. You need to think in shortcuts.
Right.
So the rhythm training stuff is a way that I can think in shortcuts to be able to internalize information, and in this case, musical information.
Right.
And let me learn songs really quickly. In some cases, learning songs while I'm playing them the first time. Which is obviously like a really good skill to have, you know? But it's not something that, you know, that I was just, you know, like born with or able to do or talented. It was something that I was actually able to learn how to do.
Right.
And that 17 thing, it's kind of like being able to see a pattern in that. It's and that what I'm describing to you, the pattern is the way that I'm thinking about it is that it's basically a 3 and 2 on the snare. And it moves backwards by each triplet. So in other words, I'm playing 3 second triplets on the snare, and then I'm playing 2 third triplets. That's what I mean.
Third triplets, right? And then you're playing 3 first triplets. So it's moving backwards, which is
3 first triplets, right? Which is moving back 1 again. See?
Yeah, and then your 2 middles.
Second triplets, which is also moving back 1. So the pattern is always moving back. But then it turns itself around in the last bar, and you know what I mean? So it's like if I would have kept going for 8 bars or 16 bars, it would have kept following that pattern, but it doesn't really do it more than 2 times. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just ended the cycle with a little turnaround. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, really, Gell did. I didn't write that. That was him. But that's just the way that not even sure if honestly if that's the way that he thought about it or not. But that's the way that I thought about it. That's how I could internalize what he wrote. And so that led me to be able to take that part of it and be like, okay, you know, I can do that. What else can we do with this? You know, what else can we do with this groove? Yeah. So anyway, that. You know, the whole thing with the Walkman and I mean, it wasn't really what you were saying. It was more really just internalizing music and rhythm and vocabulary. You know, is really what I was doing.
So it's like the light bulb turned on with you. You went into like a very serious study mode at that point, I think, right? It seems
what I really was able to do is I did it when I was able to practice essentially off the drums.
Right.
And
sure.
So it's like, and I mean, you know, I was pretty serious, obviously, anyway. We all were, you know. What I was able to do is I was able to practice when I was walking from class to class or going to bed at night or, you know what I mean? Like anything I was doing, I was, you know, that I didn't have to focus on. I was able to really turn that into, you know, to ways that I could practice, which was super helpful.
Of course, absolutely.
And management, you know, you're managing your time, and in fucking college, it's like that's the biggest, you know, most important thing that you can learn how to do.
Right, totally. I mean, I went through a period probably 10 years ago where I started using Ableton and programming different groupings, more like polymeters, groupings of 7s with 5s with 3s, and I, you know, with a program like Ableton, you're able to stretch those out so you can get the entire cycle. And some of these cycles would be, you know, over 200 beats long, depending on what the cycle is. And I would program that, stretch it out for the entire length, and then loop it so it became like an hour long. I turned it into an audio and put it on my iPod at the time and literally walk around for hours just listening to what 3, 5, and 7 sound like at the same time together for the entire duration of cycle, which is 210 bars. But
that's basically the same thing.
I mean, it's the mental practice, the understanding of the relationship of how time functions with other segments of time. Yeah. But it's one thing to intellectualize and internalize. It's another thing to physically get it out on the instrument, which is that's a whole other beast, especially at the level that you've managed to make it happen. Do you think that, I mean, the only other person that I knew that was able to kind of think in that way in those days was Rich Matchbot. Remember Rich?
Oh, no, very well. Yeah.
Yeah, because he studied with Pete Magadini, and he was
Yeah.
completely into it. And then the one record that we had that allowed us to really hear it at a high level was Standard Time Volume 1.
Oh.
And those days, that was the only record that did that.
You're talking about the Winton record, which is Live at Blues Alley, which did that for sure.
And so that was obviously on your radar, and because that's kind of what you're doing, I think a lot of. I mean, right? I mean, you're
especially the Live at Blues Alley. Basically, Live at Blues Alley was Standard Time, the songs from that record, but they played live,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so you go to New York and you find the dudes that get it, right? I mean, that first
kind of,
that
you had. That's pretty much, yeah. I mean, I found Jean-Michel and Francois pretty fast. And Jean-Michel Pilk, he was really hearing, things in a very similar way.
Because you can't do that unless everyone in the band completely understands what it is that is happening.
Right.
And so to find those players.
That's true. Yeah.
Is right, because I mean, if you're putting 5/4, someone that doesn't understand that is going to think you're just rushing.
Oh yeah.
And they might speed up and turn that into their new 4, and then it's a mess.
I mean, almost playing it is almost secondary in a way. It's like being able to hear it first, and then sure, if you find people that hear that and play it, and you hear them playing it, then they need you because you're the one that is going to hear what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. Right. So you found each other.
Yeah.
You found each other, and you changed the way that so many people think about music. I mean, that group was such an inspiration to drummers everywhere because it was totally next level stuff because it was organic. And the thing that was interesting about it is because everyone could do it, it really had this. It was almost like it took things to that next level from what Winton was even doing. So that's great. I mean, it's amazing that happened. And then, so here's what I would like to ask you, and this is a little bit more of a deep question. I mean, obviously, when we're practicing super complex rhythmic structure and coordination patterns, and obviously in the spirit of making good music, but it requires kind of a Zen mind. I mean, you really have to have the patience and the focus and kind of the discipline and the passion to overcome these challenges that aren't natural physically. I would not say that metric modulation is a natural physical occurrence. I think it's something that has to be learned for sure. So do you feel like, I mean, are you connected to any sort of kind of deeper meditative kind of level of things that has been inspired through rhythmic study? Is that something that you think about or ponder or?
Well, not really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. Yeah. No, I mean, it's all pretty connected, I would say, to music itself.
It does. So it's always, you're always coming from the angle of the music, the possible structure of the melody and what can be done, not from a contrived standpoint, but what can be done expressively with time in relation to what's happening with the music. Like kind of a fair assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. And I mean, I can always relate it to, to music that I'm hearing or to, or even music that I'm playing or whatever. But that's, I would say so.
Do you feel like, this is going to sound a little bit trite in the second, but I'll kind of deepen it up in a second. The concept of being in the zone. So when you're playing at a level where everyone is engaged in moving the time around, is it something that you're having to engage thought with, or are you in the zone? Are you able to intuit these modulations in a musical, organic way, or does it still kind of, you still have to think about it?
I always take that as two questions. I mean, being in the zone for me just means there's a certain degree of concentration. So, like I almost picture myself if I'm playing with a band that it seems like there's, I picture myself like under like one of those parachutes that you go under as a kid, and like people are shaking it out, and like shaking it so it's above you. But the point is that you're under this parachute, and the only thing that really exists in your world is like what's under the parachute at that given time. So
right.
kind of you're blocking pretty much everything else out in the world, which is part of that type of focus for me.
Yeah.
So then the other thing that you're talking about is, it's to me, what can you say actually what you had, the way that you said it again?
The idea of having to be in a thinking position, or are you driven more on an emotional level, even though there's a complexity to what you're doing? Are you so adept at
right.
the coordination requirements that you're able to,
Yeah, I got you. Right. So like, the thing that I was able to do was internalize, like vocabulary, melodic ideas that were not necessarily like much more advanced than the stuff that everybody was, already playing, but there were things that were different than the things that everybody was playing. But my point is that, I didn't really have to think intellectually about things that I was hearing or playing. I could hear them like melody, like the same way that, that somebody would hear a melody that they've heard 100 times or, 1,000 times. And the way that I did that is I had to teach myself to hear things that I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard people play before. And the way that I did it is through displacement. Is actually kind of displacing everything in a totally like essentially it's just displacing everything in a compulsive way. So anytime that I would learn something, or I'd learn how to play something new, or hear something new, I would displace it always.
Displace it just metronomically, like just move it over by the same subdivision? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Moving the downbeat to the middle of the triplet?
Yeah. It could be that I'm moving it over by by a 16th note, or by a triplet, or even better, displace it in all kinds of different ways. But of course, you got to do one at a time. You can't do them all right away at the same time. So right. What that did for me though was it made it so that I could play a melodic idea, and then I could develop it and really take my time developing it, because I would still be able to hear multiple ideas, kind of coming from the same place, if that makes sense, through displacing these things. So being compulsive about displacement really did kind of turn me on to a different way of hearing, the language of the vocabulary that I was trying to hear.
Right.
And again, that wasn't, those weren't really things that, that I would, it's not like I went to hear, Keith Karlik, and I heard him play something, and I'm like, okay, I got to learn how to play that. It was,
right.
Even though, I wouldn't understand, very likely I wouldn't even understand what I heard from him playing. But I guess my point is that, when you learn from somebody playing something, it's a very different type of, process. But if you can learn from, not from hearing, but you learn from actually teaching yourself to hear things that you're essentially intellectualizing, and not hearing in a natural way, but learning to hear in a natural way.
Yeah. Right.
I think that gives you a pretty good, kind of basis to start playing things that haven't been played before.
Right. And clearly you're not going to be a regurgitation of anything else. You're going to be much closer
right.
to the purity of your own creativity, because you're making it up as you go. You're teaching yourself. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's great, man. Well, dude, you have taken it to a level, and I know you travel all over the world, so you're being heard and inspiring players all over the world. Who do you have an Ari Hoenig army of drummers who are just like there every time you're in town and trying to play like you and trying to get that happening? And do you have that conversation with them? I mean, right now, before you answer that question, right now you have developed such a wide vocabulary that anyone that would want to emulate what you're doing would have to kind of go down their own rabbit hole, because there's such a depth and complexity to the abilities, right? Does that make sense?
The best thing I can say is that, I have students, I do teach often. And one of the things I teach, especially to the really advanced students, is how to become your own player, how to develop things that are your own creative ideas, and not mine or not anybody else.
Right.
Which actually, for a teacher, makes it a lot more fun for me, rather than just teaching my own shit to them, which would get old. And it's not that I don't do that if they ask, but I mean, it's more that I want them to develop things of their own, and it's actually not that hard, and it's not that hard to teach, but it for some students, even some really good players, it doesn't come naturally to not learn in a way that's not listening to somebody and copying what they're doing. And for other people, it comes very naturally, just to kind of sit and coming up with combinations of things, and so anyway, I mean, I think that, sure, I guess some people are, there's, I can see that, I've influenced some people in certain ways, and I feel very fortunate to be able to do that to people, just like, my heroes have, done to me, and I've learned so much, from watching, a handful of guys, people that, especially in that day that we were all in school. It's not just going to see somebody once and just being like, oh, that's cool. They can play really fast, but there's a lot of depth to it, and it takes a lot of not just seeing them once, but many, many times, and not just seeing them once play one set of songs and then once playing another set of songs. But it's like, for me, it was the repetition of watching and listening, to essentially the same thing, or at least the same player over and over again.
Yeah.
Play the same music, and a lot of times, and that's kind of what one thing that was super valuable for me.
Right. So now you're on the road. Are you practicing? Are you? I mean, obviously we're all always getting time into practice, but are there things that you're working on to advance your concept or playing, or
it's
your
my
coordination?
I am actually at this semester I've started to practice again, kind of more than I have in the last maybe decade. I mean, I would say the last decade there has been a super minimal amount of practicing for me. But one of the things is due to like an injury that I had with sciatica, which kind of took me out of that for a while. But I have started again, actually practicing a lot, and I do it on the road. I mean, I can get down with a pad, but that's not really like the main thing that I've been doing. It's more kind of the way that I was describing it to you, just in trying to internalize certain things. Also, it's like learning music, learning new people's music that I'm playing with. Obviously, it takes up a part of practicing too. But but I still really do practice in a very similar way from the whole rhythm training approach. And it is really endless, that way of learning. So yeah, I mean, I do use that.
Cool.
Rhythm training, it's a method, and it's on My Music Masterclass.
Cool.
There are 3 parts to it. There are actually 4, because there's one on odd times too.
Okay, cool. Awesome, man. I think that was a lot of great information. I think that I can really get some good stuff out of this for everybody. I'll mention your website, your Instagram page, your Facebook page.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's probably a good start for everybody that doesn't know who you are, but I'm sure they already do.
Well, I mean, definitely it doesn't matter. I mean, they can find me. Hopefully I'll be back to Chicago at some point. The last time I was there, I got the worst review of my life.
Really?
You would now, would you?
What was that?
Oh, it was in the Chicago Tribune, and the writer really singled me out, and he just absolutely hated it. I was playing with Kenny Warren, but he hated me specifically. He didn't hate everything.
Oh God!
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
That's crazy. Well, hopefully that won't keep you from coming back.
Well, I mean, I don't. Who knows? I mean, hopefully not. I thought in general people really liked the show, actually.
Well, I would imagine so. Anyone that knows what's up. Do you have any plans to come back? Or anything on the?
I don't
work?
right now. No plans at the moment, actually.
Well, you don't want to come here between now and March anyway, so.
Yeah.
Because it's about to get hardcore around here, weather-wise.
Yeah, I know.
But, yeah. Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you taking your time. It was great to catch up and talk a little bit. So.
Yeah, Rich. Sure, man. Thanks for thinking of me, and happy to help. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to hit me up. Okay.
Cool, man. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, Ari.
All right, buddy. See you, Rich.
Cool, man.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, there you have it, an in-depth conversation with Ari Hoenig. It was a lot of fun to take a look at that transcription and discover the 17-beat-long phrase within it. Very cool, and I loved hearing the concepts of practice and the approach to being really connected to the music, as well as the technical aspects of developing the technique to be able to play metric modulations and complex polymetric and polyrhythmic patterns. If you'd like to know more about Ari, you can find him at his website, arihoenig.com. That's arihoenig.com. He's at instagram.com/Ari Hoenig, and his Facebook musician page is facebook.com/Ari Hoenig Drums. All right, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that conversation with Ari. He is a very insightful dude. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and you'll be kept up to date on when the next one comes out. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love for you to give a rating. And if you have something cool to say, a review is also welcome at all times. A little business to attend to real quick before we close out. I want to remind everybody that my book, The Primary Series, is available for pre-sale until midnight on November 11th. You can get 20% off the book plus a $10 credit at the Rich Stitzel Music store, which is basically good for an entire lesson pack. So make sure you go over to richstitzelmusic.com and check out the Primary Series book. It covers the 3/4 and 5/4 polymetric relationships in depth. I highly recommend it if you are into that kind of thing. All right, take care. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Drum Mantra podcast. Your time and attention is much appreciated. I would love it if you went to the iTunes store and left a rating, and please share this with anybody that you think would like to go deeper with their practice. Take care.